Ps5 review.
It's that time again, and by that, I mean a new generation of consoles is dawning upon us, even though most people won't be able to get their hands on it anytime soon.
Oh boy!
PS5, the sequel to the last generation's most popular console, which was a sequel to a funny-shaped brick that was hard to develop for and cost at least all of your organs to afford. Yeah, Sony has had a pretty decent run so far. The birth of a phenomenon, then the sequel, the third that had a rough start but came together in the end, and then finally the masterclass that was the PS4. And where can you go from here? Well, the most interesting thing to come out of this new generation is that it feels more like a premium upgrade while also being the next evolution to gaming itself. First of all, what's in the box? HDMI cable, a USB Type-C cable, followed by where that cable gets plugged into the DualSense, and then finally, the box that is controlled by said controller, the PlayStation 5. Right away, the design of this console is out of this world, meaning, in my eyes, this looks more like a piece of futuristic/alien technology than a modern-day gaming system. While consoles have always had varying designs, they've always had some of a semblance to basic shapes in a uniform design. As examples, the PlayStation 1 was a grey box, then the next one was a black box, then the next one was a curvier black box, and then slabs. What I'm trying to get at is that even Microsoft has kept to pretty uniform designs, being mostly box-shaped. Of course, it's the Xbox. So it goes without saying that the PS5 stands out, even when locked away behind a door in my television unit. Regardless if you stand the console up or have it laying down, with big for emphasis there, because it ends up looking more like it's floating. I like this design, and it really shouts, hey, I'm the next big thing in console gaming. However, strangely, it made me more curious about what Sony plans on doing with a slim version down the line, or if this is even viable, a Pro model. Moving away from the design, we now look at what's inside the console itself, and one of the most headlining features of this new console is the custom SSD. That this thing is so goddamn fast that I fear even going back to the last generation with PS4 or Xbox One X would cause me to weep due to the huge jump in load times. It's fast, and this has been amplified with the myriad of comparison videos matching the speed of other consoles loading specific games on YouTube. Now, this system continues the tradition of being more than a gaming console by playing other things other than games. PS1 played CDs, PS2 played DVDs, which helped push a lot of units and is totally not the reason why this is the highest selling console of all time. And the PS3 could play Blu-rays, but so could the PS4. And I didn't find this out until after the PS5 was announced, but the 4K console, the
PS4 Pro,
was stuck still only playing standard Blu-rays. Now, with the PS5, you can play Ultra HD Blu-rays. Yay! Yeah, this feature wasn't too much of a selling point to me, even though I'm one of the people that notice a difference between 1080p and 4K, with a lot of my peers saying that they couldn't really tell any difference. But that doesn't mean I'll be rushing out to upgrade all of my movies to 4K now that I have this console. Speaking of 4K, graphics has been a main focus for a lot of games from the previous generation, often cutting off traditional gameplay features like in Halo, where you could no longer do split screen. I'll always take how a game looks second to gameplay. While it is impressive to see the line between reality blurring with how good models look compared to real-life counterparts, but I can always go back to Crazy Taxi on the GameCube and even the original Metal Gear Solid on PS1 and still have a blast because the gameplay is just so damn good in those games. So 4K and ray tracing wasn't always the main feature I was looking to take away from. I do, however, around with higher frame rates, which is why I choose to run Spider-Man Miles Morales in performance mode. Either way, the graphics are getting better, and I know a lot of people will really enjoy this from the games they play. Now, finally, the thing you use to control all this cool shit. Gone are the days of DualShock and 6-axis. Oh, get those goddamn fins away from me. Now we welcome the DualSense, a complete flip on what controllers are capable of doing. The main features advertised are as followed: haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, motion controls, and a built-in speaker. Haptic feedback, while really cool, is something that I still feel like I could live without. Feeling different vibrations while walking on different surfaces in games, or stuff like Astro walking through windy areas and having the vibrations reflect that, is pretty cool and a really awesome feature. But it's kind of just there for me, and I'm more occupied with what's happening on screen. This also kind of ring true with the adaptive triggers, which I thought affected my experience a lot more than haptic feedback and vibrations. As of writing this review, it has been confirmed that the new Call of Duty will use this feature to make every gun feel different. The only downside to this is that I wouldn't be surprised if more competitive players may opt to turn this off, as it may affect their performance or find it distracting. These two features are a lot more up in the air for me, and it will depend later on and how developers use it to decide on whether or not I fully embrace this feature or just treat it as a gimmick. However, I did like the feel of vibrations on the triggers in tandem with the adaptive vibrations. Obviously, I'm still pretty unsure on my feelings in the new controller, but I eagerly wait to see how it's used, and I'm fairly enjoying it, but just still have that nagging voice in the back of my head where I'm unsure. Now, the last feature, the built-in microphone, which left me joyed and a little concerned. Firstly, the positives. This built-in mic is insane. Even while having the controller sitting in my lap and having a fan blasting straight onto me, as is customary when living in a hot country like Australia, other players in party chats had no problem hearing me clearly, which is amazing. My more negative thoughts stem more from one use of the mic in Astros Playroom, blowing into the microphone. While this was a fun feature back when I was younger and playing my Nintendo DS, I had an absolute dreadful time every time I had to blow into the mic. Now, this is more on the software side of things than the hardware, but old monitor head over here would be happy if blowing into the mic stayed a gameplay feature of the past. It just seems unnecessary, and I never have fun whenever I have to do it. Nothing against Team Asabi though, who made an amazing experience that I'll get into more later in the review. They had to showcase all the features of the DualSense, and this was a pretty easy way of showing off the use of the microphone as a gameplay feature. I'm hoping if this does become a trend to continue blowing into the mic as a feature, that there will be accessibility options to turn it off, as options that I've seen in The Last of Us Part 2 and Spider-Man Miles Morales have done stuff like making QuickTime events automatic. Now, onto the UI. It's alright. I feel like it's a much more streamlined version of the UI from the PS4, and I had to admit, it'll take a bit of time for me getting used to it, but it's good. Sony is committed to using that fancy custom SSD to the fullest, and you can easily see this in the UI. Cards are a nice addition, and having the PlayStation Store not be a separate app makes you feel like you have a lot more control over the whole system. Switching to different parts of games through cards I originally thought would take away from the gameplay experience, but the UI feels a lot more tied into games and just blends in nicely, where I didn't even have to think too much about it compared to this PS4 or the Switch, where switching back to the home screen is a lot more abrupt. I did try out the game guide feature on Astros Playroom, and this feature I'm into. I found it a bit strange that this was only used for collectibles and not trophies, but reading the trophy details, hidden or not, still did the job when I played. A feature I haven't tried out though was the screen sharing with multiple windows. When I first saw this, I brushed it off as I didn't see too many situations where I would be using it, but if you're really good at multitasking or just helping out a friend with a game while also playing your own, I can see this being put to good use. Now, with any new console launch, problems will arise. Just take a look at a few videos from Crobat. Links to his PS4 launch video will be in the description. Things don't always go to plan. Like freezing, which I encountered 3 times, and every time it had to do something with Spider-Man Miles Morales. While playing Astros Playroom, I decided to put the disc in for Miles Morales, and After a couple seconds, when the notification told me the game was installed, the whole thing froze. Nothing was helping, so I had to do something absolutely heinous. I pulled the plug while the console was still on. Yes, I know. I've already lost all of credibility, and this is only my first video. This wasn't the only time I had to do this, though. I rebooted the console and hit start on Astro again, and after Miles Morales installed an update patch, same thing. Wasn't responding, pulled the plug. After this, I had no problems running Astros Playroom while installing other games like Sackboy and Demon's Souls. But once I pressed play on Miles Morales, and I went back into the notification screen to take a look at the
notification
and went back into the game, it froze. The whole console. After this, I unplugged it, I was able to send feedback to Sony or Insomniac, whoever, and I had no more issues, which I'm thankful for because the console launches can be absolutely devastating when your console does not work.
Astros Playroom review.
Back in early 2014, I got my original fat PS4, and besides a few demos on the PSN store, the best one from memory being a pinball game, I couldn't do much with the console, and reports from Machinima and other gaming journalists suggest that I wasn't the only one looking for some free experiences back then. There were things like Warframe, but thanks to the sluggish internet I had back in the day, this didn't work out for me. Eventually, I did get Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but why is my nostalgic ass bringing this up? Well, because every PS5 user will have something to do on day one. And no, I'm not talking about Fortnite. I started Astro while installing my other disc-based games, which took no time thanks to the SSD. Even with Bugsnax, a free digital game that I got with PS Plus, that game didn't take long either. None of this mattered because I was blown away with just how much of a grand experience they put into this game. Not only being a showcase for the PS5 and the DualSense alike, but being a celebration for PlayStation itself. However, the thought that most people would end up skipping this one because of its style and the fact that it's been a cutesy platformer really saddens me, because this game is a pretty good experience not a pretty good experience, a grand one that I think everyone should have at least one try of. The game really reminds me a lot of Mario 64 actually, despite that being a full game and not being a celebration of Nintendo and more so just showing off what 3D gameplay looked like back when that was new. Back to Astros Playroom though. This game looks gorgeous, and even if it has a simple art style, they really use the hardware to make some parts of this game look great and have so much detail in it. They don't disappoint in the sound department either. The game carries on a same level of quality and even has lyrics in certain levels that reference that part of the level or the part of the PS5 that you're in, which is a really cool detail that shows that Team Asobi cares. The sound for everything in the world also matches up perfectly and completely submerged me into this cute world that was apparently inside my PS5. As mentioned before, the game relies heavily on showcasing the DualSense features and implementing it into fun, interesting gameplay. Minus blowing into the mic. Oh, and extra points for including this soundbite. Certain sections of Astro's Playroom lets you take control of certain shells, which is the only word I can think of to describe them. You have the Kero Kero frog suit that was shown often when the first press embargo was lifted and other reviewers were showing off the Cool Springs level. There's the one where you take control of a monkey and have to climb and swing with use of the adaptive triggers and motion controls that worked well and felt very satisfying to play with. Next up, a rocket ship that uses a similar control scheme as the monkey, but really pumps it with the adaptive triggers and haptic feedback. And finally, my personal favorite, the ball. Reminiscent of the Star Ball from Mario Galaxy, this puts that annoying part of an otherwise great Mario experience, and instead of motion controls, you use the touchpad. This feels amazing to use, and I feel like I have full control over the ball, even taking the riskier pathways with ease where I could only blame myself for messing up. The game has a huge list of collectibles that were fun to find and even the collectibles showed a few peripherals from Sony that I've never heard of before, like the fact the PS1 had a mouse. Overall, Team Asobi should feel an utmost amount of pride as they went far and beyond for a game that could have been just a simple and bland little showcase demo. They put their hearts into it, and it really shows. It's an excellent celebration of PlayStation itself. Now, it feels weird to give this kind of a game a score. It's short and sweet. I absolutely recommend checking it out when you finally get your hands on a PS5, and you've got nothing to lose considering it's pre-installed and free. Anyway, I haven't really established this channel or personality, let alone a score system yet, as this is my first video, but I chose to score based on whole numbers with decimals. I don't think Astros Playroom needs this, however. It's perfect for what it is, and I completely recommend it being the first thing you should boot up when you get a PS5. As for the console, it surprised me with things that I thought I wouldn't care for that I ended up enjoying, but was disappointed with certain things that I was looking forward to. It's a great package overall, and a variety of games to play at launch day that anyone can get behind. Overall, this review is meant to be mainly positive because that was the main feelings I had for this console, was positive feelings. I give the PS5 a 9.1 out of 10. But good luck getting one. Oh, even though I wouldn't stress too much though, Sony will continue to support the PS5, and hey, some of the launch games on the PS5 are on the PS4. You don't need to get the brand new console with all the bells and whistles to experience these games. Well, unless you're a massive Soulsborne fan, in which I have to say, happy hunting.